This is the Evolve Cima, and this is one of, if not the best all-road road bikes to come out of China. But I don't think it's my favorite. This one's going to be a bit complicated. Let's get into it. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. Who are Evolve and what is the Cima? Evolve are a new player in the frame game, but they do have some history. The two co-founders of Evolve, Tony and Mien, one of them is the co-founder of Elite Wheels and one of them is the co-founder of Cybrace. So if you've been watching this channel or if you know anything about Chinese carbon, those two are two brands that do not need introducing. And yeah, Evolve is the sister brand, I guess, of Elite Wheels, who obviously have been in the carbon wheel game in Xiamen for a very, very long time. But obviously making frames is a different kettle of fish to making rims. My understanding is that Evolve spent a lot of money on a brand new production line for their frames and also headhunted some of the best of the best of the best in Xiamen to start this project. So let's see if it was worth it. So before we go down some of the rabbit holes, let's just get the black and white specifications out of the way, starting with my favorite, the weight. The frame set in a size medium, unpainted raw, 650 grams. Like 650 grams. It's so crazy how just normal it's come now that we can just say a frame is 650 grams, but that's less than the weight of a full bottle of water for the frame, but it is what it is. Obviously you slap on some paint and you slap on some hangers and stuff and the weight goes up. My particular frame that you see here with the paint job but without the accessories was 727 grams, I think, so that's a size small, and my uncut fork was 367 grams, so a pretty lightweight fork as well. Speaking of the fork, there are actually two fork offsets. The smaller sizes use a 44mm offset, the larger sizes use a 40mm offset. This is something that only very few brands do. I think the most common example is Specialized with their Rider First engineering. Basically, Specialized claim that they change the layup and change tweaks to the geometry on every size of frame to make sure the whole range of frames ride the same. And having two fork offsets is basically because as frames get bigger, the head tube angle changes, which will then change your trail figures and stuff. So by having two versions of the fork, as the headset angle gets slacker or steeper, you can kind of bring the wheel back to where it should be to keep the handling the same across the range. It's super annoying because you have to open more tooling, you have to design the forks, you have to keep the extra SKU in your warehouse and all this stuff. So it's something that not a lot of brands do. The fact that Evolve are doing that means that, you know, they're going all out on this frame. And it's one of those things that when you look at the geometry of a frame, if you see there are two different fork offsets in there, you know they're trying hard, or you know they know what they're doing. Like I said, most of the Chinese brands don't do that. The Quick AL1 doesn't do it. They only have one fork for the whole range. And that's not talking down on the Quick AL1. Even Carnago on the V4 RS only has one fork for all 7 sizes of the frame. So it's not a diss to Quick Pro. It just shows that Evolve are going above and beyond. Other specifications of note, we have a BSA threaded bottom bracket that keeps installation easy and tolerances easy to take care of. A UDH rear derailleur hanger, obviously that keeps things nice and compatible with everything these days. We've got 32mm tire clearance, I think more than enough for a road bike, for a race bike at least, and a rider weight limit of 109 kilos, so 2 of me can ride this bike and however many of you. Now the Cima is their first bike. It's their all-round kind of do-it-all aero and climbing bike, a la the Specialized Tarmac, and it does actually strike a bit of resemblance to the Tarmac, the SL8 you could say. Now there's a few arguments for and against this. You can say, you know, everyone's using the same laws of physics, so if you want to have the same mix optimal of tube shapes that optimize strength to weight and also tube shapes that are aerodynamic, you're going to come up with the same results. But I think there are enough differences on this to separate it from your typical Tar clone bike. Yeah, at first look, it does look like a Tarmac, but as you start looking at a few of the more shapes and sizes on here, yeah, it does kind of separate its way over there. I think another element to this is that Evolve, it's their first frame, so you don't want to be like too radical with your first frame. I think you want to do something with your first frame that is like easy-ish on the eyes and people are easy to like get on board with it. So I can see why you'd be very close to something like the Tarmac, which is obviously one of the most common road bike frames out there. So for me, the appearance of the frame, the actual shape of the frame, I do like it. It's a nice looking bike to look at, I think. But yeah, it does strike an resemblance to the SL8. But there are two things that separate this from most of the SL8 clones out there, or separate this from most of the Chinese like all-round frames out there, we should say. One is the attention to detail on this frame, and number two is the layup. So let's talk about these. Now let's start with the attention to detail. No stone was left unturned when they were developing this frame. You know, they went to Silverstone, they did all that stuff. There's a 24-page white paper on the development of the frame. All of the FEA they did, the CFD they did, all of the testing, the different layups, all of that stuff is in the white paper. Now let me pick out some examples of just how nerdy they went, just so you can kind of see the level of detail we're going to. Like, they even developed a special timing chip holder. So obviously when you're racing, you should put a timing chip on your fork. Most people put it on there with the zip ties, and at best you put an inner tube over it to like roughen out the to smoothen out the airflow a bit. But Evolve went one step further and actually developed a thing that attaches on here and keeps the timing chip out of the airflow behind the fork. Weird though that it doesn't come with the frame as standard. You have to like buy it as an optional extra, but it just shows like the level of nerdy detail that they went to when they were developing this frame. Another place where they went really nerdy was developing their own aero bottles. So yeah, they developed these aero bottles to go with the frame. Again, don't come with the frame. I think you have to buy them as an optional extra. These cages, they can also hold normal bottles, but obviously they're designed to be optimal with their own bottles. So in their wind tunnel testing, they compared it to the SL8. I assume it's the SL8. In the white paper, it just says S Model 8. So I'm assuming an SL8. With standard bottles on both bikes, this is 18 seconds faster than an SL8 over 40 Ks, but put on these aero bottles and that goes to 48 seconds. So yeah, like for like, either with normal bottles or without any bottles, it's faster than the SL8, but put on these bottles and we're going faster still. So if you are getting the frame, if you do want to get the most out of it, I do recommend picking up these bottles as well. The same level of attention to detail was applied with the frame, like cutting weight as well. Now obviously they did what all of the good guys do, of doing multiple layups to try really cut the weight down and keep the stiffness there, experiment with different plies and different ply directions and different material types and stuff. But also they went one step further. There are a few brands which will make a super good frame, but then the seat post clamp is made of pig iron, or all of the accessories are just like not really, they're like second thoughts out of the part bin. On the Evolve, no, they really went for it. This seat post clamp up here, just 17.5 grams, which means the whole seat post is like 140 grams. The expander plug in the steer tube, just 15 grams. So, you know, they really went at it with all the small details. Because when you're building the bike, obviously you need all the accessories. Sometimes you get a super light frame, but then when you build up the bike, it's and it's just because all of these small accessories just add up and add up and add up. But with the Evolve, with the Cima, it's super easy to end up with a sub 6.8 kilo bike just because of these small attention to detail on all of the accessories. The through axles, like 48 grams. Again, not as light as like your 30 gram carbon fiber overfasts, but a lot lighter than most brands who have like 80, 90 gram through axles. So yeah, very impressive attention to detail, weight weenie cutting on the accessories. And then we get onto the second thing that I said makes this different to most of the other frames out there, and that is the layup. Oh yes, the layup, the secret sauce, the mystical, wishy-washy, wombo that marketing departments just love to use to kind of pull the wool over your eyes. Because it's one of those things that people can't see, right? They can say whatever they want about the layup. They can say they use this, they use that. And the end consumer, we have no way to prove them wrong, really. So it's definitely a place where marketing departments usually get with it. Also, you know, they also use it to trick cycling journalists. You know, they'll send them a press release about how it's 28% stiffer or using 40% more this, and the cycling journalists will regurgitate it all and tell you how the frame was washed in dihydrogen monoxide from the beginning, and sound very impressive. So most of the time, the layup, the secret sauce, in my opinion, it's a bit of riffraff, but on the Cima, they nailed it. Now, long-time viewers of the channel will know around 2 years ago, I did a review of the Trigon AR01, and at the time, I said it was the best riding disc brake road bike I've ever ridden. And to this day, before this, it probably was. It had something about it really hard to put your finger on it, like this Jekyll and Hyde kind of persona where when you were cruising on it, it was super, super comfortable, but when you got out of the saddle and gave it the beans, it still felt stiff. There are lots of frames out there that can be comfortable all day, but then as soon as you give it the beans, like it just feels a bit noodly. The Trigon, no, it could do both. And now this, the Cima, is the only other frame since riding that one that can also do it both. Yeah, this thing nails the Jekyll and Hyde perfectly. Like for like, with exactly the same wheels, exactly the same tire, and exactly the same tire pressure, this is noticeably more comfortable than any other Chinese road bike I've ridden, and most of the Western road bikes I've ridden too. Yeah, the frame just soaks up the road buzz like a 1500 gram titanium frame would do, but on a frame that's high modulus and 650 grams, that is super, super impressive. And like I say, my sprints only just about crack 4 figures, but when I'm sprinting on it, it absolutely feels stiff as a plank too, so very good. Now me personally, I'm not a huge fan or desirer of comfort. You know, most of my bikes have raw carbon saddles on there. For me, like, comfort isn't high on my list of priorities. But for some context, I've been riding the Cima since April. They gave me a test bike back in April, and they gave me another one in like June, and now this one I have now. I've done like 160k rides on this thing, and at the end of the ride feel noticeably fresher than doing it on another stiff race bike. So yeah, there definitely is something in there in terms of on longer rides, this giving you a bit of relief. So as I just said, this is essentially my third Cima, but this one is my own now in my own custom painted rewind paint job, but this will be available on Panda Podium. But this is my build as I built it these days. Still a few things tweaking and changing on there, thus no bar tape. But yeah, let's head outside and I'll walk you through how I built it up. Okay, so let me talk you through how I built up my particular Cima. As usual, I'll start from the top and go down. So at the top we have the Sella Italia SLR carbon saddle. Usually all my saddles are pure carbon, but this one obviously has some padding on it. That's because I'm actually going to be doing an Everesting on this, or attempting an Everesting on this in a few days. So I want some extra cushion for that. Stay tuned to see how that goes. Down here, seat post, there are 4 different options when you buy the frame for seat post. Different lengths and different offsets. I've gone for the shorter one, but the +5mm, so spring me slightly forwards on the bike. That's how I like to ride all my bikes. So that's the seat post I got on there. Di2 battery is inside. For shifting duties, we have Ultegra on things. Again, it would be nice to have Dura Ace, get the weight down even more, but putting Dura Ace on every single bike adds up and gets expensive, so only Ultegra for this one. As we go down, we have the CRW CS 4045 wheels on here, unbranded. These are some test wheels. CRW sometimes tweaking with things for next year's versions and stuff, and so yeah, I end up with lots of test wheels without logos on them, and so these are one of those. Wrapped around them are the Continental Grand Prix tires, so not GP 5000s, just regular Grand Prix tires in the clincher form. Budget tire. I like the sidewall, matches the kind of color of the frame a bit. Again, just keeping the overall build cost down a bit. In there we have the 36 gram Ride Now TPU inner tubes. On here we have a cassette that I'm testing. It's like 150 grams, 11 to 34. As I said, everything coming up, I want some easy gears. Speaking of easy gears, if you look at the chain rings at the front, this is a 4630 chain ring. So it's direct mount, so it goes directly onto the crank arm, so you don't have to worry about BCD and stuff. And the front derailleur hanger is slammed all the way down, and it shifts okay. I won't say it's amazing. The derailleur is a mil or two too high, but it works, it shifts. Thank you, Shimano, for not messing that up. So yeah, a 30 at the front, a 34 at the back. That'll be a good climbing gear for the Everesting. Cranks, we're on the Cybre 155mm cranks. That's another reason why you need the good gearing, because as your cranks get shorter, you get less leverage, etc, etc. Obviously no power meter on these chain rings, so I'm using the Fevera Asi Oma pedals for this one. I was going to use the Magine pedals, but these are 10 grams lighter, and in an Everesting, 10 grams is 10 grams. Aero cages on here. I'm not sure if I'll keep these for the Everesting or if I'll go for the climbing cages with some lighter bottles. Obviously, half of your Everesting is going downhill, and going downhill at like 40-50 k's an hour, so shave off a second or two every time I do a descent. That adds up. But yeah, maybe I'll change them for regular bottles just so people who are supporting me can just swap out bottles easier and stuff. I'm not sure. At the front we have the Cruiser handlebar.
Cruiser is Evolve's in-house accessories brand. This one is like a 120 by 36, I'm gonna say. Like I say, I wish I had the 34, but they don't. Super easy handlebar to route all the cabling. Nice shape, very comfortable. Yeah, it's a great handlebar, just not my perfect size. Something you'll see on none of my other bikes, I have a spacer in there. Again, for the everything, I thought I don't want to get a neck ache and stuff like that. Never done a ride that long in my life, so just try to set the bike up a bit more relaxed. Keep a spacer in there, attempt the everything. After the everything, get rid of that spacer, and probably go to a narrower bar as well, all TBC. Everything else, pretty run of the mill. Rotors, got some, I can't remember what the brand is, just some generic super cheap rotors on there. Brakes are the Ultegra brakes. Oh, I've got the tri-peak, rear pulley, asymmetric, yada yada. Again, this was off of my Tavelo Attack, and yeah, that's still on there. Again, could save a few grams by changing it out, but maybe it looks cool and maybe slight drivetrain efficiencies. So in this spec, what's it gonna weigh? Let's have a look. Let's whip off the bottles and whip off the Garmin. We have no bar tape on there, so keep that in mind. But yeah, place your bets now. What you think it's gonna weigh? So yeah, with pedals, with aero bottle cage mounts, with GPS mount, but no bar tape. On the Super B scales, I got told off for using Park Tool scales last time, so I'm using my accurate and certified Super B scales, so Rhino doesn't eat me. Yeah, place your bets now. What do you think we're gonna weigh? .34 kilos. That is pretty impressive if you ask me. Like I say, we're using Ultegra, not even using Dura Ace. That's with these heavier bottle cages. These tires aren't the lightest tires out there, and these wheels, obviously not climbing wheels, but pretty all-round aero wheels. So 6.34 kilos, yeah, I am impressed. Now we get onto the elephant in the room, the price. $2,299 US for just the frame set. If you want the handlebar, you've got to add another $200 US. Now, if you want to be optimistic, you can say you're getting an SL8 S-Works frame for less than the price of an SL8 Pro frame set. And I think if you look around, you can see where the money has gone. You know, you've got the Ceramic Speed SLT headset in there. Like I say, they've done all the wind tunnel testing and all of the R&D, so you can see where the money is going. But definitely some people out there will think that more than $2,000 for a Chinese frame set is insane. But I think it's just the sign of the times. Before, the Chinese brands, they weren't doing the wind tunnel testing, they weren't doing the R&D, you know. Now they are, and you've got to pay for it basically. So yeah, some people think more than 2K for a Chinese frame is insane. Me personally, I'm happy now that these Chinese brands are developing more expensive frames, because they're not just making them expensive for the sake of it. Well, some of them are. But lots of them are using that extra money to do the R&D, and the result is great frames, which are expensive, but still cheaper than their Western counterparts. So yeah, for me, you don't have to buy it if you think it's too expensive, absolutely no problem, but I'd rather people have the choice than have no choice at all. Okay, so let's start to wrap this up with the pros and the cons of the Evolve Cima. The pros, the number one I'm gonna go for is the ride quality. As I was saying before, this whole Jekyll and Hyde personality that it has, the layup in this, I'm not sure what the secret sauce is, but they absolutely nailed it. Yeah, the most comfortable yet most stiff road bike I think I've ever ridden, including rim brake bikes. Super impressive. Second advantage, second thing I like about it, the weight. Again, very impressive for a frame that's not a skinny climbing frame. 650 grams for an unpainted frame. Like I said, 700 and change from my painted frame. Yeah, it's cool time to be a roadie. Easy to get under the 6.8 kilo mark. And yeah, for me, you guys know weight is king. So yeah, I do like a nice light frame. Added onto that all the accessories are super light as well. Just makes keeping the weight of the full build down lower. So yeah, as a weight weenie, that weight, tick. And the third pro of the frame, I think, is the aero-ness of it. Yeah, it's not as fast as like an all-out aero bike like the S5 or the Y1 RS.
But for a bike that's an all-rounder bike, you know, to be faster than an SL8, which I think is most people's benchmark as like an all-rounder bike, yeah, definitely fast enough. And you feel it when you're out there as well, like when you're in the aero HUD position, honking along like 40 k's an hour-ish, you can definitely feel the aero advantages over all-rounder Chinese frames. So yeah, the aero stuff I definitely think is also a tick in the pros box. Now cons or disadvantages, things I don't like about it maybe, generally hard to think of the cons. I'd say, and again I'm nitpicking, for me the handlebar width, so their in-house handlebar brand Cruiser, the most narrow bar they have is a 36. Again, for me, nitpicking, I like a 34 these days, so it would have been nice to have a 34 option, but a 36, I assume for most people, is narrow enough. But for me, I prefer the 34, so that's why I've got no bar tape on here. I'm currently experimenting with different bars and seeing what I'll end up with. But yeah, so that's super nitpicky. Number two of my nitpicky things is, as I mentioned earlier, they developed a bunch of like small accessories for the frame. One is the racing chip holder, another one is like a custom number holder, but they don't come with the frame. So I'm like, you know, you went to all this trouble to develop these things and the frame's pretty expensive, and these small things, once you've opened the mold or whatever, don't cost too much to make, so why not include them? I don't know. Again, this is very, very nitpicky, but it's my job to nitpick. And the third thing, which is a con, or maybe it's a pro, you guys choose, the branding. So this is a lot to unpack. Whenever I post pictures of this on Instagram, everyone always says the same thing. Why is the R so big? I don't know, okay? I don't know, don't ask. Yeah, it's part of their branding. Love it or hate it. They're definitely trying. And you know, the other versions of the paint job, they write evolve here, and then like nature chooses the strongest to survive, which again, go on any Instagram post that has the frame with that quote on and people are just going crazy about it. So it's polarizing, let's say, but I'd say subjectively, it's well done. Like it's at least different, it's clean, there is a brand. There are some brands out there which, you know, today they use this font and then the next day they change a font. Like there is no brand essentially. So I'd say Evolve, their branding, it's strong, but yeah, sometimes a bit too strong for some people. Anyway, when I made this paint job, yeah, just got rid of the quote and just kept Evolve here, but they were adamant they wanted me to keep the R, so Evolve or Evolver. Put the R here, revolve, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't bother me at all. Like, it is a quirk, but I think quirks are cool. You know, if everything's the same, it's boring. So yeah, branding on the box as well. You know, there's some weird English quotes here and there. Love it, hate it. You guys make it up. So I'll put that in the cons section. I'll just, yeah, say this is a con. But for me, I really don't care. And like I said, I'm really, really nitpicking. Oh, look, another example here. We have the bottles here, the Cruiser bottles, and rebirth from ashes. What does that mean? I don't know. Who knows? Now, at the start of the video, I said that this is one of, if not the best bike coming out of China these days, but I said it's not my favorite. So what's that all about? This is one of those it's not you, it's me things. I'm a bit of a lunatic. So why isn't this my favorite? Well, it all comes down to the feeling of the bike. This bike doesn't feel as fast as something like the AR1. Now on the AR1, you get lots of the road buzz, and sometimes when you're railing a corner and there's a slight imperfection in the road, like, you know, it kind of throws you off that line of the road. Like, I kind of like that. Like, it makes you feel the speed. The Evolve, on the other hand, there's no road buzz and it just sails effortlessly down corners. Yes, this is probably faster or as fast as an AR1, but the AR1 feels faster. For me, being the lunatic I am, I want it to feel faster. You know, I keep trying to think of a way to describe it to people, and the one example I can maybe think of is like, this is the Bugatti Chiron. Like, you know, super stupidly fast, but you just put your foot down and it just effortlessly pushes you forwards. Four-wheel drive, no drama, just super, super fast. Whereas the AR1 is like the Koenigsegg Jesko, like, you know, all of 1,200 horsepower going through the rear wheels, hold on for dear life.
They're both equally fast, you know, put them in a quarter mile, put them in a high-speed race, they're basically the same, but the Koenigsegg just feels faster and it's more of a visceral experience. Now, this is a terrible example because I'm sure of the people watching, maybe one person has ridden a Bugatti and a Koenigsegg before. I've never driven a Bugatti or a Koenigsegg, but you guys kind of get the idea. One is refined and classy and very little drama, whereas the other is more just like, gets in a fight in the bar and just goes for it kind of thing. And me, being the lunatic I am, prefer the latter. But to put it another way, if you gave the two frames a subjective or objective score for every category, like the weight, the stiffness, the aero performance, blah, 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 and added up all of these scores, the Cima would have a higher score than the AL1. But the score that matters to me the most, the perceived speed, is higher on the AL1. So personally, I choose the AL1, but maybe for most people, if you go for the all-round approach, maybe the Cima is the one for you, unless you're a lunatic like me. So should you buy one? Probably, like I said, unless you're a lunatic like me. This bike is every bit as good as a Tarmac SLA S-Works, a Scott Addict RC Pro, a Cannondale Super 6 Lab 71, but a fraction of the price. Yes, the price is high, but you are getting a frame that will not lose an inch to those other frames at a fraction of the price. That just makes it an easy recommendation. It's no surprise then, of course, that the Evolved Cima is up on our website now over at pandapodium.cc. As with everything on the site, you know, we test it, we ride it hard before we put it up on the site, so that's why it's taken so long for all this process. And yeah, super easy recommendation. So yeah, it is now up on the website, including this rewind paint job that I designed. As with any new thing that drops on the site, the lead times are a little long. I think currently we're about 4 weeks lead time, but you know, have some patience, good things come to those that wait. But what do you guys think? Would you get one? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Have I gone mad? Have I lost the plot? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you have any questions about the frame, let me know in the comments down below. If I don't get back to you, or if you want a faster response, maybe head over to pandapodium.cc and talk to the team on there with your questions about the bike. But yeah, that's about it. China Cycling, out.